Hello and welcome back to another What I Watched This Month. As always, if you have any recommendations or suggestions or disagreements with what I say, let me know. But other than that, let's get into it. I started off the month with 846, which is the new Dave Chappelle stand-up, I guess. If you don't know, this title is referring to 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is how long the police officers were kneeling into George Floyd. So this gets into some pretty heavy subject matter, but I think Dave Chappelle handled it really well, and he talks about, pretty much just the current situation that we're in. And there's not really many jokes, which we think of Dave Chappelle as a comedian, but he does always have serious moments, and I think he handles these topics really well and is super down to earth and eloquent and just did a good job. And after his last Netflix special was pretty bad and gross, it was good to see him kind of back on track, I guess, and a lot of what he's saying is really important. I'm not really gonna give this a rating out of 5, but I'm gonna put the link in the description to the YouTube video that I watched of it. Then we've got the 2007 3D animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Um, this is definitely a nostalgic one for me. I remember borrowing this from Blockbuster in probably 2010 and watching it. But even though my expectations weren't really that high, this was a bit of a letdown. Like, the story is really weak and feels super forced, and um, a lot of the jokes are pretty bad. Um, but I liked some of the voice acting. There's a lot of good voice actors in here, like Zuko's uncle from Avatar is in this. Um, Chris Evans is in this. Sarah Michelle Gellar is in this. So it's pretty. There's a lot of big names, surprisingly. Um, I liked all the turtles are pretty good, I guess. Michelangelo is obviously goated. It's the Lots of people, mainly Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fans, really, really fucking hate this. And it's like, okay, it's not that bad, like, and it's Teenage Mutant Turtles. It doesn't need to be that serious. But I really would have liked maybe like a 2D style. Might have been better. I prefer 2D animation. And some of the designs, like the old designs, there's been millions of different designs for these characters, but some of them are so sick. And this movie didn't really look that good. It was really obvious that it was trying to be more gritty because this was when the the Dark Knight trilogy was coming out, I think, and even like Spider-Man 3 and stuff was around this time, and it's trying really hard to be that. And it I would have preferred if it lent more into the just the fun of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles instead of just being like this gritty superhero movie, but for kids and with stupid jokes about pizza in it. I'd probably give this a 2 out of 5. Like, it's not insulting, but it was sad to watch. Then we had American Beauty by Sam Mendes. I haven't seen this since all the shit on Kevin Spacey came out, and this definitely does affect the enjoyment of this movie. Like, it's definitely like the elephant in the room of this movie, and it really, obviously, that's fucking disgusting and makes the movie a bit harder to watch. But when you really just look at this movie, it is really good, and like, it definitely has an emotional impact. I know I say that a lot, but it's true, especially for this. It's like a modern classic. I'm pretty sure it won heaps of Oscars, and I think it's really good. I like it feels a bit archetypical or stereotypical, whichever one. But at the same time, it's like, oh, it actually feels pretty true. Like, this family, like, it's not only about Kevin Spacey being a pedo. Like, there's all the other stuff and the subplots here, like, kind of get overshadowed by that. but they're actually really good. I really like the juxtaposition between like the idea of a perfect suburban American family, upper middle like income and everything, and we've seen that before. Like that was everywhere in the '90s, but it's super interesting, and I think it's done really well here. I think like there's going to be something in here that everybody can relate to their family because it's pretty just because it is so archetypical, I guess. And like this movie is a classic for a reason, and it's the directing from San Mendes is really cool and like stylistic, but this movie is a bit difficult to watch nowadays. But look, it's like a 4 out of 5 movie. It's so solid. Chicken Little. Yeah, this was really weird, especially for a Disney movie. I don't know what they were really going for making this movie about a weird little socially awkward chicken and like aliens. Um, I was thinking earlier about how I can't imagine this like genuinely being somebody's favorite Disney movie, which is not true for most other Disney movies. Like you just think this has to be at least one person's favorite. And I can imagine somebody saying that Chicken Little is their favorite, but I can't imagine anybody actually believing it deep down. Um, this was kind of like it's so weird, but it's so also forgettable. Like I don't really remember anything about it. I did like the dynamic between Chicken Little and his dad. I liked the arc there. It's nothing surprising, but I think it works well enough. Um, I remember the humor being kind of dumb. Like there must have been one or two funny jokes, but it just was that classic mid 2000s like pop culture references, and it's like it's can't be funny for the adults because it's so dumb, and it can't be funny for the kids because they haven't seen what you're referencing, like King Kong references. It's like, oh, 6-year-olds probably aren't gonna get that, and it's if you're old enough, it's like, oh, do I really give a shit about King Kong being referenced in Chicken Little? Like, is that even fucking funny? But like, this movie isn't terrible or anything. It's just too weird, and it's just Chicken Little is a really he's not really that likable. Like he's not bad or anything, but he's like he just talks too much, and he's like, this guy's ruining. Um, this was like entertaining to check out. Like, I remember watching this as a kid, and it's just was weird to check out, but it was like I didn't really get anything out of it. I'd probably give this like a really light 3 out of 5, probably. It's not too bad, but I don't really care. After that, I watched the Smosh movie from 2015. It's probably not very surprising that I turned this off after half an hour. Um, the look, Smosh, it's like it's fine when you're 10 years old, and at least with the oldish videos that I was watching when I was had my Smosh phase that we all had. At least it had the charm of these guys actually thought it was funny, and they were making videos that they liked to make, and it wasn't like, well, this is what we're known for, so we have to stick to it. Like, there's no way these guys are like, what, like 28 in this movie, probably. There's no way they think this shit is funny. It's so stupid. The jokes in this are so dumb. Like, all the jokes are about Anthony being a loser and Ian being a moron. And it's like, I don't know that that was ever, like, the case back in the day. I don't really remember. But it's really just like a shitty version of Peep Show if Anthony is Mark and Ian is Jeremy. But way less funny than Peep Show, obviously. Um, in this movie, they, like, get trapped in YouTube or something. And it's just dumb, and it has nothing to do with Smosh. Like, I would have liked Smosh fan service. Like, they've got so many characters that they could have just forced in. It would have at least been nostalgic or something. It would have been stupid still, but it would have been better than this. There's lots of YouTube cameos that already felt dated. Like, it's just You recognize their face. It's like, who the fuck? I don't care who this is. I don't. Maybe it would have been good for 2015, but 5 years later, it's already like, I don't give a fuck about these people. Um, yeah, this was really dumb, not funny, hard to watch. You could tell that nobody cared or was having fun. Didn't like it, didn't laugh. I would give this maybe a 1.5, but I feel like if I kept watching, it would be even lower. Then I watched the original Halloween movie. I've seen this before, and it's not really my favorite of like this genre or anything. It it was one of the first, but because of that, it and the really low budget, it just feels super low budget. And this is already the slasher genre is something that is pretty basic anyway, and to have like the basic low budget, nothing really is happening. Um, it almost makes it like a novelty, and almost makes it interesting because of how like simple and slow it is. But at the same time, it feels really slow and simple and a bit boring. And obviously, like 40 years later or whatever, almost, yeah, 40 years, it feels like there's no shock factor or anything like there would have been back in the late 70s if you watched this. That's not really the movie's fault. The score in this is awesome. John Carpenter does the score in this, and it's iconic. You know, you can probably already hear it by just thinking about it. And Mike Myers. Mike Myers is a pretty awesome villain, but it's just a bit too slow. Budget's too low. Um, yeah, it's super super simple, and it's impressive. This movie was like, I think, the second slasher movie ever made, and and Friday the 13th just ripped it off and everything. But I don't know. I don't know if this movie deserves to be as famous as it is. And it's the same with like Friday the 13th and everything. It's like, it's not really that interesting or impressive or nothing's going on. It's definitely not scary. But I don't know. This movie was alright once you got like an hour in. But I'd probably give this, well, 3.5 maybe a 3. I don't know. I like the second one better. After Halloween, I watched Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette movie. This was pretty fun and funny and a lot more exciting and modern than you'd expect a Marie Antoinette biopic to be. There was lots of familiar faces showing up. I'm not going to go through the cast, but um, there was interesting people in here who wasn't expecting to see in this. Um, One of the more interesting things about this is the soundtrack has lots of like modern, I guess, indie music, which obviously doesn't fit the time period, but the songs they selected were really nice, and I think they were implemented really well, and I think it was one of the coolest choices made in this. And the production design, all the costume, all the sets, they look fantastic, and that was really impressive. Kirsten Dunst goes ham as Marie Antoinette, and this was really enjoyable. It was nothing mind blowing, but I really liked watching it. I really just it was just a movie that I enjoyed watching. I would give this like a strong 3.5 maybe. Almost could do a 4 though. It was pretty good. I don't remember much of it, but I remember really liking it. After that, I watched The Queen. I had to watch this for school, and I normally wouldn't go within 50 feet of this movie. I really just do not give a shit about the royal family, and if you're going into the with that mindset, this film does fucking nothing to get you interested in this. This is about the royal family following the death slash conspiratorial murder of Princess Diana. Um, and that's not really something that I know that much about. And I guess you could call this movie educational because it kind of goes through that a bit, but it's also operating on the assumption that you already know lots about that, which I don't, because It was before I was born, and like I'm not invested in the royal family at all. The directing on this felt super vanilla and super basic, like just no spice to it. Um, and the one thing I noticed is their portrayal of Tony Blair, who was the prime minister at the time. They were like trying to make him so normal, and he eats like fish fingers and shit, and has an electric guitar in his office, and it's just a minor detail, but it was really gross to think of a prime minister eating fish fingers for dinner at his house. Um, yeah, I didn't like this. I didn't care. It was so vanilla, so boring, so just did not care about this story. Dumb, didn't laugh. 3 out of 5. It's not bad, but it's just fucking don't care. I went to see The Personal History of David Copperfield during the short window that cinemas were operating, and it was nice to be back in a cinema, and it was nice to see just a nice, straightforward, emotionally effective, like biographical movie. Um, there was lots of recognizable English actors in this, um, and they're all pretty funny. This movie was surprisingly really funny, and like Tilda Swinton is fucking awesome in this. I don't remember who else is in it, but there was lots of cool characters, and they're all like unique, and it feels like a picture book from when you're a kid, and all the characters have like weird different voices and weird different traits. I haven't read the book, obviously, but I really liked this. This was just like straightforward, nothing too crazy, and this was like a likable, charming movie, and I was surprised by how much I liked this because this isn't necessarily something I'd go in for, but I was happy. I was happy to have seen this, and it was cool being back in the cinema, obviously. Recently, I watched through all the Harry Potter movies, and I decided that I couldn't be fucked talking about them in these videos, but I did rewatch Prisoner of Azkaban because they were showing it at cinemas, and I went straight after David Copperfield. Um, and I thought that I would talk about this one because I watched it twice recently, and it seems to be a lot of people's favorite one. Um, yeah, this one is pretty good, and I can definitely imagine it being somebody's favorite Harry Potter movie, or even like your favorite childhood movie. Alfonso Cuarón brings this sickness to like the directing and the production, and it's definitely the best looking prisoner Harry Potter movie like by far. And it's really obvious that everybody following this movie was trying to rip off a piece of Alfonso Cuarón's sort of vision that he brought to Harry Potter, which says a lot. But I feel like this movie, like it's got one of the weaker Harry Potter stories, in my opinion. I don't know too much about the books, but once you've seen this once, it's like, okay, I don't really care about Sirius. I don't really like Gary Oldman as much as everybody else says they do. And it's like, what's the appeal of Sirius Black? Honestly, like I really don't care about that character, which might be a bit controversial to say. But this movie is just downhill, slightly downhill. Like it stays good the whole time. But after Harry Potter gets to the Leaky Cauldron, it's not as good because we start off really strong with Aunt Marge getting blown up, and there's that awesome shot of Uncle Vernon in the backyard, and the camera slowly zooms out, and there's that they're watching like crazy dancing on the TV, and there's two TVs, and that shot is so fucking mad. Like even as a kid, you're like, something about that shot is fucking insanity. And then you watch it again in cinema, and you're like, yeah, it is fucking insane, and it's awesome. And then the night bus is awesome, and it's just like the fucking best, like for 20 minutes of Harry Potter is the first 20 minutes of this. Then the rest is kind of anticlimactic and uninteresting with Sirius Black. Like they put so much effort into building up Sirius Black to be really scary, and it works when you're a kid. But if you're watching this again, it's like, what's the point of this? Like I know he's a goodie, and I don't really care. And there's no Voldemort appearance. You're like, oh cool, Voldemort's gonna show up and he's gonna be a big snake again. But he's not in this. The Dementors are pretty scary. They're definitely the scariest in this movie, and that's because of the detail that Alfonso Cuarón has chosen to portray them with. After that, they were just kind of thrown around recklessly for cheap scares, and not treated with like respect from the movie, I guess, to make them actually scary. So they're definitely the scariest in this. Um, this, like I said, this is by far the best looking Harry Potter movie from just the production design, and the costumes are awesome. Like, even just the main three kids have just got fucking drip the entire movie. But like, this is not as good as Chamber of Secrets or even Philosopher's Stone, in my opinion. It just doesn't have that. I don't know. It just doesn't have maybe the funniness that those two have. I don't know, but this is definitely a viable pick for the best Harry Potter movie. But I just wish that it had um something more going on in it. Honestly, apart from Sirius Black. I would probably give this 4 out of 5. So it's not like I think this is a bad movie. Like, it's really fucking good, clearly. But I just feel like I have to defend and explain why it's not my favorite one, because it seems like it's everybody else that I know has this as their favorite Harry Potter movie. But yeah, obviously this is good. Next, we had another rewatch with Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. Um, yeah, you've probably already seen this, and you probably already know this good. Obviously, Waititi is like one of the best, one of the funniest directors going right now. I'd say that. Um, it's remarkable how well this turned out. Like, comedy satires about World War Two and Nazi Germany, like, all of the time, are kind of annoying, but was handled really well. They don't really they never like directly talk about the Holocaust, which is probably a good choice. Um, the main kids, Jojo Rabbit's actor's performance is really good for like a little kid. Scarlett Johansson is fun in this. And everybody just feels well written, and I've already said this heaps this video, but you can tell that they're enjoying their role in the movie. Um, Taika Waititi as Hitler is good because he just did zero research and like wasn't trying to bring this like historical aspect to it, which is, I think, is a good choice, and just was like, Hitler doesn't even fucking deserve it. So I liked that. Um, but yeah, this is just funny. It's visually appealing. It's a extremely Wes Anderson feeling movie, which is fine. Um, yeah, if you haven't seen this by now, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, whatever. Go watch this. It's good. 4.5, probably. Then we had National Treasure 2. I really liked the first National Treasure movie. I watched it for the first time a month or two ago. Um, and this was fun as well. This is probably equal or slightly better than the first one, just because of the villain. Um, the villain in this is way better. Um, well, thinking back, I can't actually remember what happens in it. Actually, I don't even fucking remember anything about this movie. But I remember it being fun. It's just the same sort of shit as the first one, like Nick Cage, Indiana Jones kind of rip off, but with a lot more emphasis on humor and maybe lower stakes. But this is good. Like, these movies are underrated. Like, they exist in meme culture, but they're actually, I think both of them are worth watching. And I think, I don't know how reliable it is, but I've heard about a third movie, and I would definitely go watch a third National Treasure movie in cinemas. And I would actually, almost would recommend both these movies. They're just fine movies. I'd give them 3.5. Jimmy Neutron. I'd been wanting to watch this again for ages. I'm super nostalgic for this movie. and so I just threw it on, and yeah, it's fine. It's really funny. I think Carl and Sheen are like two of the best like side characters in cartoons, and they're like the best part of this. I remember Sheen being so relatable as a kid, which is kind of embarrassing to say. Um, the story in this is weird. It's like a way better version of Chicken Little with the aliens. Yeah, don't watch Chicken Little. Just watch Jimmy Neutron again. Um, but this is pretty standard. Like it's just like it's got a pretty normal moral about loving your parents, and like it's nothing crazy happening here. Lots of people talk shit on Jimmy Neutron for having really ugly animation. It's like, yeah, Jimmy Neutron's head is pretty fucking gross. But apart from that, like for 2001 3D animated, it's not that bad. Like, it's not delicious animation, but it's fine. And this was just like, it's just a funny movie. Like 3.5 probably. Okay, now we're getting into some good fucking movies. The Squid and the Whale by Noah Baumbach. If that name is familiar, it's probably because you saw Marriage Story on Netflix recently. And yeah, this is pretty much on the same caliber of Marriage Story, which I thought was a really solid movie. If you can't see, the dad in this is Jeff Daniels, who's the guy from Dumb and Dumber who isn't Jim Carrey. And that was really weird and off-putting at first, but he actually gives a really impressive performance as this kind of unhinged, shitty dad. And this movie this movie was really confronting and a bit messed up, but in a really great way. Um my cousin Big V's compares this to American Beauty, but like more realistic and more artful probably, and I think that's a fair call. Jesse Eisenberg is really gross and pathetic in this, and so obviously just wants to be his shit dad in a way that is so like devastating and true. It's like you get to see the effect that directly that this shit dad and this like dysfunctional family is having on these two young kids, and it was just so fucking sad. And I really liked it. I really liked how shit this movie made me feel. I would probably give this maybe 4.5. Like this was really impressive, really beautiful, tragic, fucked up, good. Jeff Daniels, fucking like awesome. I love this, and it was so fucked up. Alright, another good one, Boogie Nights by Paul Thomas Anderson. I'd seen the first like 15 minutes of this before and fell asleep or turned it off or something like about a year ago, which kind of sucks because that's right before this movie gets really good. But like the only problem I have with this is it takes so long to get going and there's not really a hook in the first like act of this movie. But after it picks up, it's really solid and impressive. But I liked the way this movie looked. As you can tell, it's set in the 70s, and they do a good job establishing that superficial, glamorous LA sort of 70s disco-y aesthetic for most of this movie. It moves into the early 80s though. And I liked the casting. I think it was cool that they chose Burt Reynolds to play this 70s, porn mogul, considering how much of a sex symbol he was in the 70s. I noticed and appreciated that. And even Mark Wahlberg as the protagonist was like, that made sense considering his existence as Marky Mark and I think he did Calvin Klein modeling, and he's just existed as in the public eye and has a little bit of a sexualized image when he was younger. So I think that was something that I noticed and that I think tied in with the narrative of the porn industry in this movie. Yeah, obviously this movie is really sad. It definitely it definitely hits, definitely connected. Um, normally I don't like in movies when they incorporate really, really famous like classic songs, but I think it was done well enough here that I didn't really care. And I think that it tied in, like I said, with that sort of LA like culture, street life that they were trying to connect this movie to. The directing here was really good, and the editing sort of reminded me of something like Goodfellas, with just the punchy, impactful um, editing. And I liked some of the sections were. I'm not sure if they actually shot on film or if they just made it look like they did, but they looked awesome, and obviously helped connect this to the time period. Another Goodfellas comparison is just the amount of shit going on. There's lots of side characters and subplots and just heaps of shit happening. Some of the subplots just didn't go anywhere satisfying or surprising, but they're quick enough that by the time they're over, there's something more interesting happening, and that I didn't really mind that too much. Um, People like Philip Seymour Hoffman and Don Cheadle and John C. Riley show up. Like, there's heaps of characters in this, and they're all either funny or tragic or scary. Like, Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2 is in this, and he's fucking crazy in this. And that was one of my favorite bits. Heather Graham, I think she had a really good arc, and the casting was good for that. Yeah, this was a super impactful. I probably should think of a better word, but this movie really hit, and really, it's pretty based for a 1997 movie about porn. It's pretty, like, aware and pretty true. Um, I really liked this one. This was one of my favorites of the month. I would give this probably a 4.5, just because it is a bit slow to get started. Knives Out. Lots of people were just frothing at the mouth over this when it came out. And yeah, it's pretty good and pretty cool, but I don't know if it quite lived up to the hype. Um, but it was really cool seeing this kind of revival of a movie that, I'm sorry, a genre with like mystery genre, murder mystery, sorry, that everybody knows and everybody understands, but probably like, I don't know how many murder mysteries people have seen. Like, I can't even think of any, but it's a genre that everybody can immediately understand and tell what's happening. Um, so I liked that aspect, and as you can see, the cast is fucking crazy. We got Jamie Lee Curtis, Daniel Craig, Lakeith Stanfield, whoever else that I'm forgetting. Like, everybody's in this somehow, and they're all given pretty good material. Like, there's a lot of funny lines. My least favorite bit was when the police officer talks about Hamilton, and when one of the characters has a duel. I hated that. But apart from that, this movie didn't blow me away or anything, but it was visually appealing, and the protagonist was great. Um, and this was, yeah, an enjoyable one. I'd give this 3.5, like a solid 3.5. I also watched Bo Burnham's movie Eighth Grade. This reminded me a little bit of mid-90s, and not just because it's a comedy guy directing a coming of age movie, but just with the tone and the approach, I guess. But I would say that I enjoyed this more than mid-90s. This felt so true and so like nostalgic in a really gross way. Even though it is so American, it still felt kind of universal. Like, there's this bit where this like 14-year-old boy does that thing where you flip your eyelids inside out, and it was so disgusting to watch. But it was like, it just took me back to that time and how awkward and gross being in year 8 is. And yeah, this movie connected emotionally and was well written, and like I said, felt really true. But I just wish the camera was doing a little bit more. It felt kind of underutilized, I guess. But I really enjoyed watching this, and I hope that Bo Burnham makes another movie, maybe similar to this, just with a bit more of an active camera, I guess. I'd probably give this 4 stars. 1999's Don't Look Under the Bed. I wanted to watch a Disney Channel original movie or a DCOM for a little while, just because everybody always is frothing over them. Like, millennials really love Halloween Town and shit, and Gen Z really loves Camp Rock. But I never had Disney Channel when I was really little, and Disney and Disney Channel weren't super integral to, my childhood media. But I thought I'd give it a try, and apparently this one was kind of controversial when it came out for being scary, for kids, and I definitely can understand that. Um, this is about the boogeyman. The boogeyman is the antagonist in this, and there's an imaginary friend sort of character. Like, I guess he's like some sort of ghost. But his character and his performance was really good and really funny and really, like, just, out there, I guess, which was fun to see them kind of go a little bit crazy with a pretty weird idea. And this movie has so many Dutch tilts in it. Like, every shot is just Dutch tilt as fuck. And they look really good. And it actually helps establish this really weird nostalgic for something that you haven't seen or haven't experienced. And the climax in this movie was crazy. It got a little boring in the middle, but the climax just has this crazy set, and the boogeyman villain is so yuck. And, like, it was such a satisfying ending, and there's some genuinely funny jokes. For every 10 just dumb jokes, there's one good one. And actually, yeah, I really loved this, surprisingly. This was so fucking weird in just the coolest way. And I imagine if I saw this when I was a kid, it'd probably be one of my, like, nostalgic favorites right now. But yeah, I really like this. I'd probably give this like a strong 3, like a really strong 3. After that, it was time for Chungking Express. A lot of people really, really love this movie and this director, and I wanted to as well, but it just didn't land for me. I didn't feel the way that I wanted to about what was happening or any of the characters, and I was kind of confused by what was going on. And about an hour in, there's just weird narrative focus shift, and I just didn't really understand why. And it was kind of like, am I meant to be not bored right now? And I feel like I could tell that this was a good movie. It just didn't, get anything out of it. And I'll rewatch this one day, and I'm sure that I'll like it a bit more. But, like, you know, didn't didn't really wasn't really that interested. I would give this maybe like a 3.5. It's obvious that it's good, but I just didn't enjoy it that much. Then it was time for Children of Men, which is another Cuarón movie. Um, yeah, this was pretty good. It wasn't as just crazy as I wanted it to be. But it was pretty intense and pretty gripping and pretty good. All the performances are spot on. Obviously, Cuarón's direction is really good. But I think I just put it on too late in the night, and I kind of fell asleep with like 20 minutes left to go, or or maybe I just got through. I don't really remember. So I kind of don't even remember the second half of this movie, which is kind of embarrassing. But it is really good, and I can tell it's good, and I'll rewatch it soon. For now, I'm giving it a 4. Michael Caine was really sick in this, even though I thought he was Dumbledore. Um, the premise is really good, and yeah, I am excited to rewatch this soon. Alright, 1999's lesbian rom-com, But I'm a Cheerleader by Jamie Rabbit. Um, yeah, I didn't really connect with the comedy in this or the romance in this, so I kind of wasn't left with much. This is about a cheerleader being sent to a gay conversion camp, and it's not as dark as that description probably sounds, but it is kind of messed up. Um, but this just wasn't that funny. I didn't care about the romantic aspect that much. RuPaul was good in this, and the actress of the Casper the Friendly Ghost movies is in this, and she's good. I don't know what her name is, but she was good in this and really scary. But I decided to leave this one with 20 minutes left. I don't know, I just thought my time was a bit more valuable. But that doesn't mean this movie was bad, it just wasn't for me. I would recommend, like, Portrait of a Lady on Fire obviously is better than this, or just some other thing. And then for some reason I really, really wanted to watch Tootsie. Um, this movie kind of reminded me of when you watch Ghostbusters and it's like this big 80s classic that every like Gen Xer is just fucking obsessed with. And then you watch it and it's kind of not that funny and there's not really any jokes even though it's a comedy and it's kind of nothingy. And I like this and I like Ghostbusters, but you just get that weird, like almost disappointment, but still good feeling, if that makes sense. This also has Bill Murray in it. All the before the This is a funny script and it's pretty true and it's pretty based, but it's just like, oh, is it that funny? And it just goes too long and it was a bit of a chore to get through, which is not what you want out of, a piece of entertainment or a piece of art. But this was pretty good. Um, Whatever, 3.5 on this one. In my blood, in my blood it runs from May and Newell. This is about an indigenous young boy, and it's pretty good. It was a good portrayal, and um, felt super intimate and affecting. But this wasn't like a technical masterpiece or anything like. But for what it was, and for Australian standards, this is pretty good. This is like there's not many Australian movies and not many that aren't complete shit. So I liked watching this. Um, it was good to finally see some representation. Like you don't normally see Aboriginal people on screen, so that was good. And this movie, gets into the nitty gritty of our juvenile detention system and everything like that. Um, yeah, I would recommend this. Actually, I just don't know what to give it out of 5. Then I forced my family to watch Cadet Kelly with me. This is another old school DCOM. And I think everyone was joking at school when I said that I watched Cadet Kelly the previous night, but I really did, and I liked it. Um, yeah, this movie sets out for what it wants to do. It's just trying to entertain little Disney Channel watchers, and it'd probably be fine for that. There's really no reason to watch this as a 17-year-old boy in 2020, but it's good enough. Um, I was gonna give this a 2, but then, not to sound like a fucking wimp or anything, but there was a pretty nice, wholesome ending. Everything was tied up pretty nicely, and it bumped it up to a pretty solid 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 is a good score. I meant to give The Queen a 2, so 3 is a good score. After that, I watched Noah Baumbach's 2017 Netflix movie, The Meyerowitz Stories, with Adam Sandler and Ben Stiller and Dustin Hoffman in it. This was really fucking good. this deserves as much attention as Marriage Story got, and I'd say it's as good as Squid and the Whale, which is probably pretty telling considering those movies are really fucking awesome. This movie felt so, I don't know how to describe it, but it felt so like mundane and boring and like indulgent for the, self-indulgent, that it was like it felt like this movie would have existed regardless of if I was watching it. This movie felt like a real thing that was happening and I was just watching it happen. This didn't feel like a movie that was constructed specifically to entertain me. It just felt like Noah Baumbach was like, alright, I'm just making this fucking thing. I don't care if anybody likes it or not. And that in itself made me fucking love it. There's so many mundane details and so many just boring long dialogue scenes that all managed to somehow be really entertaining. And I loved the way that the story played out. It was super emotional. I cried a little bit actually. And even like Adam Sandler really delivers here. And it was just felt so true. Even like it made me feel like I was a middle-aged man and I was like, and I'd been through all this stuff even though I'm obviously not that. And I've never experienced it, but it just felt so, like, intimate is an overused word, but that really applies here. And this was just fucking incredible. I'm giving this 5. I don't know why I loved it so much. After that, I closed off the month with something really fucking weak. Agent Cody Banks. This had a little bit of nostalgia value, but it was really dumb and really stupid. I don't know what I was expecting, but this movie is really awkward. Like, it's trying, obviously, to appeal to this, I guess, like 13, year old age bracket, roughly. And it's like a stupid story, and it's impossible to take seriously. But all the jokes are kind of edgy to try and appeal to that demographic, I guess. Like, there's a lot of sexual, like, kind of, even some politically incorrect jokes in here, which just really just didn't sit well with me. You know, coming from 2003, Frankie Muniz and Hilary Duff, like, it was just kind of gross and not funny. Um, all the action in here is really shit, and it's just super stunt doubly. And I didn't expect them to make Frankie Muniz, jump out of cars and shit. But I don't know, they could have made it a bit better. And yeah, this was boring. This was gross. I just went to sleep instead. I would probably give this 2 for what I saw. Yeah, don't recommend. Okay, that was most of what I watched for July. I hope you liked watching. If you stayed this long, as always, leave any feedback or recommendations. I would recommend watching Meyerowitz Stories, maybe Cadet Kelly even. Squid and the Whale for sure was a favorite of the month. But for least favorites, Smosh sucked. The Queen sucked. Agent Cody Banks sucked. Yeah, they were shit. Steer clear of those. Yeah, thanks for watching.